All right, well, good morning, everyone. This is Brian Hawkes with HiMonkey, and I'd like to welcome everyone to this month's Kentico User Group meeting. Today we have Sally Schmidt and Trevor Fisk from Avastone Technologies. They're going to be presenting on the free Bootstrap Layout web part in Kentico Marketplace. Before I turn it over to them for introductions, I wanted to be sure to remind everyone that they can go out to the kenticousergroup.org site to view all upcoming webinars, as well as a collection of all the previous webinars, including slide decks and recordings. That being said, I will also get this recording up either by the end of the day today or at some point tomorrow. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Sally and Trevor. Sally and Trevor, take it away.
Thanks, Brian. So yes, we're going to share about the Bootstrap Layout web part that we have available in the marketplace, and just we may not take the whole hour here. It's a fairly simple but pretty powerful web part, but we did want to share it with everybody so that you can use it as much as we've been using it ourselves. By way of introduction here, as we get started. Next slide. I'm Sally Schmidt with Avastone Technologies. I've been working with internet websites for over 18 years. I've been working with Kentico for just over 4 years and love it. My background is kind of varied, but I really focus a lot on user experience and allowing people to do what they need to do but still keep things looking great. And this web part is one way that we found that if you have some reasonably tech-savvy users, that they can use it themselves to do a lot of creativity within their website. On the personal side, I love to travel, and earlier this year we were at the Grand Canyon on the North Rim, and so that's where my picture is from. Avastone Technologies is a Kentico Gold partner. We have over 32 Kentico websites that we have built over the past 4-ish years, and really, we love working with this tool. So we're very happy to be part of the Kentico user group. This is, I think, the second or third presentation that we've given, and really appreciate HiMonkey putting this group together. Trevor, I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Trevor Fisk. I've been a certified developer for probably about 2.5 years. I'm working with Kentico for about 3. As I mentioned in there, do a lot of the work on the DevNet site, worked with a lot of the great people with Kentico, both support and also Brendan, worked with him a lot. I love Kentico, having worked in a custom-built CMS prior to coming to Avastone, and how painful it was to even do little stuff. Since my time at Avastone, been involved in many projects, and built many web parts specific to different clients. However, whenever I do stuff, I try to make it flexible and usable by everyone so we can use in other projects. And just been loving the working in it. It's been a great platform, not only for creating sites, but also developing in, and didn't take long to start really taking off and building web parts and such. But this one in particular is our most highly used web part that we have. We use it, I think, on every single Kentico site that we have, and except for maybe some older ones that haven't integrated it yet. But I'm really happy with the way it turned out, and just love being a part of the community, and definitely a Kentico evangelist, so passionate about the product. But that's about me.
All right, great. By way of a little introduction here, so before we get into the actual web part, here's some of the challenges that we had that kind of spurred the creation of it and why we love using it so much. So when you're working with a mobile or a responsive design website, you want to avoid using tables, but Kentico's row column web part uses tables, so that made it not as flexible for use in responsive design. You usually use divs, but a content editor is not going to put in a div when they want a table or a columnar kind of layout. And with the current design trend of kind of these longer scroll, I sometimes call them striped pages because they often have color swipes on them, where you really have very clear columns and rows. It looks like a table, but you don't want to use a table. So that's where Bootstrap of course, is an awesome framework to use. It's great for mobile. It's great for those striped pages. And so the Bootstrap Layout web part is very helpful for that. It can be used as a web part on page templates so that you can use them to in the layout of the page template. It can also be converted into a widget and again, if you have some reasonably tech-savvy editors, you can give them the ability to actually add columns and rows to their pages kind of freely without them trying to use a table by making this available to them as a widget. So it is in the Kentico Marketplace. The easiest way to find it is to filter for items in version 9 and then click on the web parts tag, and then there's only 9 on the page, and it's one of those. So what is it? And we're going to be spending most of the rest of our time kind of in some websites to show you how it's used and what it does. And Trevor's here, so he can get into a little bit more of the behind the scenes. I use it more from a editor, user standpoint. But this is just a sample page template design tab. Look here. And on this page, we have actually multiple Bootstrap web parts added to the page. And so you can see here that it's used, and it has a 2-column layout here, and the same thing here, 2 columns. And so I'm going to switch over to the actual website itself, and we can look down even further. So it has a lot of 2 columns. Well, then here's just one that just needed 1 column. And then the footer down here is actually also done with the web part. And it's got 3 columns, then with a nested Bootstrap web part for 2 more columns. So you can really use it to make any kind of column row layout that you need. And so this is an example here of using it as a web part. We also have an example, and it looks very similar if you use it as a widget. So this is now we're on a different site. We're on the page tab here, so this is where the editors would spend some time. And this widget, or widget, the widget here, is the Bootstrap with 2 columns. And then here we've got Bootstrap down here with 3 columns and with a 1 column on top of it. And then this is a 1 column, and here's a 1 column with 2 columns. So you can see it's just, the flexibility is awesome because it lets you lay out these, as I call them, the striped pages with whatever layouts you need. And because it's all Bootstrap, this is all going to collapse and wrap nicely when you look at it on a mobile view. So what is this widget web part that we've been talking about? I'm going to look at it as a widget here, and if you just going to configure so we can see the pieces of it. It has several different areas that allow you to customize it. So one is you can set how many columns do you want your layout to have. So each widget is really a row, and then the columns you can decide, and it's up to 12 because that's the Bootstrap kind of thing, is 12. If you need to, you can prepend some CSS or put in some container CSS, so we'll get back to that in a little bit. And then you have, here's your column. So we just said we wanted 2 columns, and then you can decide how wide do you want those columns to be. So what is that distribution? I'm going to close this here so you can see this was 2 columns with kind of a narrower column and then a wider column. And so that, if we look at it, how it was set up, is the first column is a 4-column column, and this is where it gets a little confusing because you got a lot of different words column. The second one is 8 columns. But if you keep in mind that everything is 12 with Bootstrap, so we had a maximum of 12 columns we could use. Then within this Bootstrap widget, there are 12 column spaces available, and that really defines the width. So the column sizes here that you have need to add up to 12. You can have 3 columns. If we made this a 3, I'm not going to save this because I'm working on a real site here, but if we made this 3, then 4 and 8 isn't going to work because we need to have another one here. So we could do 2, 8, and 2. Now we have still 12. We could do 4, 4, and 4. And then we'd have 3 equal width columns on our page.
You can save if you want to, Sally. Just don't save the page and show them what it looks like.
Oh, okay. All right. So if I save this now, page refreshes. So now I have 3 equally wide columns on my page. This one over here is a column, but it doesn't have any widgets in it. So this is like this Bootstrap widget becomes a widget container. So I would add a widget to this column if I wanted to, and it would be whatever, text, or it's going to take a while, so let's skip that. So I could add text or a picture area or whatever I wanted over here, a form. It could be anything here in this third column. I added it. If I go back, figure it differently. You know, you could go crazy. You could have 12 teeny tiny columns if you want. I'm going to set it back to 8. And this one is not. Back to 2. So you can see that it is fairly simple and straightforward to consider how to use this, and which makes it, like I said, you have to have somebody who's not afraid of technology to be able to use this, but we have had a lot of editors use this, and they like it because they can get to that table layout that everybody wants without using tables, and so it keeps them from resorting to tables, which is going to break any kind of mobile design. A couple other things. Let me pull it back up here. So this is the column. So there's up to 12 columns, so you have all of those columns. Then you can also do the widget container specification here, and so this one has this Bootstrap column wrapper. I'm going to show on our, this is another site, so this is where we're using it within the page template to lay out the page. Go to a different page here. And in this case, we used the containers to specify what the color was going to be for this, for behind this whole stripe on this site. So this is one of these striped sites where it has at the bottom is kind of a very light gray, then there's a darker gray, medium gray, light gray, white. So there's all these different colors on the page, and the Bootstrap Web Part containers are set up to handle these different colors. So depending on which color gray you wanted, or there's also a blue one, which is, I think, is at 60. Oh no, here's the light blue one. You can change that web part container, and that changes the color of the background of that area. And so this makes it, you know, just even laying out this page template really easy, because it's just clicking around here and choosing how many columns you wanted, what column widths you wanted, and what color you wanted it to be once that was set up in the CSS, and then it's pretty simple to lay out this page. So it gives you lots of flexibility. And see, even here we had the 2 columns within our web part, and then, you know, this one was an image and this one is a text. But on the next one, this one is the image over here and this one is text. So it's just super flexible, giving you a lot of options for being able to do that. And like I said, you can nest it. So you can even come up with this, where we have these 2 columns are really part of this larger column, giving you lots of flexibility for how this works. I think then, Trevor, if you, that's kind of the overview and kind of the basics of using it, both for a web part and in a widget scenario here. And now, Trevor, if you want to switch over to your screen, I think you have a couple more details to share about kind of setting up the CSS and some of the flexibility.
Sure.
That's part of that. So, Brian, if you can, perfect.
Show mine. Actually, one sec. Shoot. I should have joined the thing on the outside. All right, well, let me quickly just do a login then.
You need me to...
Can I quickly, I accidentally logged into the login tool inside my remote desktop instead on the outside. If I real quickly just jump out and jump back in, or is that because I can't show my local one?
Well, why don't we just
Let's
show
go
from the...
Yeah, I might have a local one here. Sorry with that. Okay, so tell me when my screen is visible.
We can see it.
All right, let me get this up. Okay. 1 second, log in. Okay, we're going to take a look at kind of the behind the scenes and all the flexibility of the web part itself. Because I designed this not only to be for Bootstrap, but also to be flexible enough to really encompass any sort of div-based row column system. Because I also had to change this for a Bootstrap 2 site, which has different class structures and everything like that. And go to web parts. All right, so you're going to see two Bootstrap items right here. One is an obsolete. At the beginning of the inception of this, I actually had a separate row and then column layout, but it ended up not being needed because really when you're saying your column structure, you're going to have a row around it. So I just ended up combining them into one unified Bootstrap layout tool. So inside the tool, really what makes a div column structure exist is you have a div with a row container, some sort of class. In this case, in Bootstrap, it's just a row. And then you have your columns underneath it, which are all divs, again, that have like a call SM12 or call SM10 and the different structures within it. So not only can you set the structures of that, your web part row, like you want to do a 4, 4, and 4, but of course, the other flexibility of Bootstrap is to be able to tell it using other CSS classes that I want this to be 6 columns wide or 50% at medium screen length and maybe 4 columns wide at small and then full width on the other one. So inside of the columns, there's that additional CSS that you saw. And this is where you can append whatever you want onto it. So for instance, if I have a Bootstrap that is medium 444 for its setup, I can put in additional CSS like call SM12, call SM10, and define not only what it looks like on normal, but also how it wraps and how it behaves. So we're going to take a look at going to the products, component 4, let's take a look at the design page. I think we have some of them in here. So it has a different height and width. This one might. Small. Okay, don't have one here. So right now the CSS preprint up here is set to small, and Bootstrap has 4 layouts: extra small, small, medium, and large. So right now this is saying for the small screen sizes, 768 to 991 pixel, they're going to be 6 and 6. Now if I wanted to, I can type in call XS4 and call XS8. And now when it goes to the extra small size, it'll be 4 columns for the first one and 8 for the second. On the most up-to-date Bootstrap layout tool, this one is a little bit out of date from the current version. In the additional CSS columns, it will actually say and give you hints to all the Bootstrap, different definitions. See if I can bring that up and at least copy and paste it so you can see. And notepad. So by default, when you do the hover over on the CSS, it's going to give you this hint text to say how do you do additional sizes, how to make it visible on size, hide on size, offset, ordering, and then here's just a little guide. So the nice thing about the new version of it is if you don't know Bootstrap fully, or like me, I don't memorize all the different, like how to hide stuff. Is it visible size? Is it size visible? Whatever. I put a little tooltip there to help you to be able to put those classes in there. So there's the flexibility that you can add in all your Bootstrap lingo nice and easy. There also is the container CSS. And what this does is adds along with the row whatever classes you add in here, which is very useful if you want to set styling for anything within that Bootstrap row. You can put like design row 1 or something like that. And then when you save it, it'll have a div row or div with a class of row and design row 1. To Sally's point with where they use the Bootstrap containers, this column CSS puts it on the row. So if you need something that's surrounding the row, you of course have to use that container. But that's another nice little tool that you can say, okay, I want to put a special class here so I can do some special formatting, put some CSS in it, and get that going. The other thing is that while the number of columns is set right now to 12, that's variable. So you can actually set that to more if you wanted to. By default, we have it set to 12. And the reason being is that Bootstrap itself, although you can have, it has 12 width columns to it in a row, you can actually put in more columns that go past 12 and it just does its wrapping. So you could have a maximum of 14 columns and set them all full width, and you'd have 14 full width columns stacked on top of each other. It's also very nice, though, in terms of if you want to do limits, if you're using another type of layout tool that only has a maximum of 9 or 10, you can set that in there. And of course, all this is editable, so if you're using a different tool, you can define what the drop-downs are and all the rest for your different options. Now, along with that on the bottom, there's the max columns. So this is a little bit, sorry, apologies. The max columns down here is where you set the maximum number. So for instance, 12. You can expand them and contract it. Whatever you set as the max, though, the widget tool will not allow you to go past that. There's also the row CSS, which by default is row. So if you're using a different framework that uses a different row identifier class, you can set that. And then include containing row. As I said, originally this was a row web part and a column web part. So if you want, you can disable this and put that an option, and then it'll just put the div columns without the row wrapper. So the including containing row is just a nice way that you don't have to do it. I set true by default, so it's just one contained item. There's also a allow design mode, which is hidden on the widget form, and that just allows you to hit the little plus to add in columns, and it takes care of that just like you can do with the table and the row and the column layout tools that come by default. You can enable that and make that work. Some other things that come along with the latest version of the Bootstrap layout tool is going to be the ability, or there's a couple page templates that come with it. And see if I have one site that's most up to date that I can load in to show you those items. So let's take a look real quick, and I think I have a Kentico 9. Let me browse that. So just to make it easier, just like inside of Kentico, they have like a 3-column, a 25-75% column, with a right-hand side or a left-hand side or a full-width column. Those are all still table-based. So to kind of mimic that, I made a couple page layouts and a couple page templates that have those same features, but are also in Bootstrap. Just a nice, easy way to be able to give you a couple basic places to start. They all come with widget zones, or web part zones, and widget zones. Log in. Just my personal site, so log in. And they also have a little trick involved that you can switch between the zones without having to worry about stuff breaking. So, I didn't import it yet. Okay, I'm sorry, Sally, and I should have logged in on the right one. But we did this with another site where they wanted to take a page layout that's full width and then maybe make it a right rail and a left rail. And you can switch those templates between each other and you'll be all set. It will put the content in the right places, allows for flexibility between them. I think I'm going to show the CSS. As you see right here, it gives you kind of a color variation in terms of the deeper you go into the layers, the darker blue the color is. That comes along with an optional CSS style sheet, which is called the Bootstrap Helper. Which I don't have on this one. And the Bootstrap Helper tool has a couple CSS things to help just in general with your system. By default, when you put an image inside of a column, the image will still be its full width. So if you have a image that's 600 pixels wide, it's going to expand over to the next column if you have a smaller, shorter column. So I added just a simple images underneath the Bootstrap must be a max width of 100%, and that allows it to flex the images properly so you don't get an image that is beyond its column. And also added in the logic that says if you're in edit mode, that if you add your rows and columns in nested format, it'll give you that kind of blue overlay hint to kind of visually see where things are. But the base package that you get from Kentico includes the web part, the widget form of it, includes the different page layouts that you can utilize, and the page templates. Comes with the Bootstrap CSS, the Helper CSS, so that way you have all those things available. And it's available for 8.0, 8.1, 8.2, and 9.0 for the different environments. I think that's about all I have for it. Yep, that's all I have. So just a couple additional things that you can really expand it out. And the newest version that is out there has a lot of nice little hints and tool tips and stuff like that to make it easy to use even for novice users.